You're listening to Beyond the Benchtop, a show about food ingredients. Our conversations go far beyond the lab as we dive into topics spanning from food science to market trends and everything in between.
Hello and welcome back to the St. Charles Trading Podcast Beyond the Benchtop. My name is Kristi, and if you want to know my position, look back at previous videos. But today I have my coworker, Mr. Brown. Hello, Eric. Can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Eric Brown, one of the buyers for St. Charles Trading. How's everyone doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. What category are you?
I cover a multitude of categories, but my biggest category is salt.
There's a lot going on in the salt industry right now. I heard a lot of things are pretty tight. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Salt as a whole, I mean, obviously, us as consumers, we tend to like to buy more because we're at home. So as consumers, we like to eat. So that's definitely something that has spiked salt purchases recently. And then as of recent, due to the weather, there has been some tightness with salt, especially down in Texas. I know some of our current salt suppliers, they had outages, so we actually weren't able to get salt to some of our customers for about 2 weeks. And as of right now, because of all the back orders, we're seeing constraints on our salt on the floor. Mm-hmm. Before the pandemic, everything was good. I think as we continue to get through the pandemic, everything will free up and we will see a lot more salt available, become readily available to all of the customers that need the salt.
Within this time period, everyone thinks that any possible increase in lead time is because of COVID. But, what people don't realize is Texas saw snow for the first time in however long. So people are adjusting to that, and that obviously affects all the transportation. And when transportation becomes messed up, that's when you're going to see lead times that are not met.
Correct. I mean, even when the salt was available, the transportation was holding up salt for about a week and a half. So that alone, I mean, it's not just product being available. It's also the transportation that's going to get the salt from one location to the next that is going to be the biggest thing just to get it to the consumers. Without that, we're kind of dead in the water.
The demand for salt is always there. So there's really no time to lessen up and be able to get back on track when there are possible increases in lead times and availability.
I mean, if people were actually watching the news, I know some people do, and I know some people don't. They like to just scroll social media. I think the biggest thing that if you actually were to watch the news and see like some of the stores that were down in Texas, they were sold out of not just salt, but almost all products. It was dark in there. Like it literally looked like Florida or, New Orleans when some of the hurricanes hit. Like it was bad. And when you're not used to snow or things that don't usually hit your state at that point in time, I mean, you don't have the need to or access to things that can solve those problems for you.
Sure. And I think one thing that's hard too is a lot of people think that salt is mainly just for like flavor profile or for curing or making different products tender, but it actually is used. I mean, for Texas, they probably didn't have the salt that you use on your driveway or anything to help melt that ice.
I mean, that's some of the biggest things that people, don't understand is that salt actually in the food world is small compared to pharmaceuticals and chemical companies. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, salt is in everything. And I mean, we as consumers, we eat a lot of food, but think about all the things we use on a daily basis. I mean, in some of your clothing, it takes salt to help create some of the fabrics that we wear. So I think that, outside of kosher salt, which is the biggest salt that we buy, outside of that, I mean, if you really invest in like iodized salt and things like that, you'll see the multiple different things that salt is truly used for.
Right.
I mean, obviously, we need it to live, but we need it to do things in our everyday life, especially when snow falls here in Illinois. It's not a fun time.
I know. I'm hoping that it's finally stopped. But yeah, I agree. I totally think that most people think that it's only within the food industry and maybe a little bit to after they shovel their driveways put down. But it's, like you said, used in pharmaceutical. It's used in, cosmetic. It's used in a lot of different industries as well.
Yeah. It is. Before I started here, it was small thing in my mind, and then as I started to
Yeah.
develop and understand salt, I realized, you know, how important it is in our everyday life. I mean, I know how much I need salt personally, but I didn't know how much the world needed salt. It's like you need salt as bad as you need water.
Yeah.
So
They almost go hand in hand.
yes, they do.
Within the salt industry and the different salt products, because when I first started looking into the food industry, I didn't realize how many different variants of salt there are. Which would you say is the most widely sold?
I would
And
say purchased. I mean, I think it depends on, you know, who's buying it. So let's
Sure.
just say for consumers, like I said earlier, the kosher salt is going to be the most
Widely accepted.
Yeah, widely accepted. I mean, it gives, in terms of just cooking alone, it gives a flavor enhancement that, you know, other salts can't give. Most other salts give you like that salty taste, but obviously kosher gives you that flavor enhancement where you don't taste that, you know, bitter, salty taste.
Sure.
Outside of that, I think it really just depends on end user, because I mean, you got a wide base of sea salts. I mean, you got a wide base of just regular dendritic, Purex table salt. If it's a chemical company, it's going to depend on the application of that chemical. I would probably have to dive into that more, but if I was to say, I mean, I think the number one thing we sell is dendritic and Purex, and I know those two things are big for us. So, and those go to chemical companies.
Yeah.
So, if I could say off the top of my head, probably dendritic.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one thing that I've learned is there's so many different types of granulations of
True.
salt. I always kind of associate it with, you know, table salt and then sea salt. And sea salt, that might be flaky or it might be coarse. It depends on the application. But as I've really started to create different products with different granulations, I've really understood that, you know, you have fine sea salt, which is great for something that might be more of applicable to powders.
True.
And then you have something that's more coarse that might be used on top of a pretzel or a baked good.
Personally, when I get pretzels, I take the salt off. I think it's too much.
What?
Yeah, personally, I had to let that out. It was as soon as you said pretzels, it came to my mind. But some of our customers prefer that as well. They have specific needs, and they like top flake salt.
Yeah.
And the granulation on that is far different than a Purex.
Right.
So, like I said, it's pending on the customer's needs, and I mean, some people like to see bigger flake salts. Some people don't. Some people like it really, really tiny. So, I mean,
So you don't like pretzel salt at all?
you want to know why I don't like pretzel?
You don't go to the
salt?
mall and you don't get a big pretzel.
You want to
with
know what
lots
I
of
do when
salt?
I get a big pretzel? I take the little film thing that they give you, the little piece of paper, and I scrape off the pretzel salt. You still get that salty taste, but I just think the salt in general is too big for me personally. I don't know. I don't like chewing on it, and then as I get through the soft, you know, pretzel bun, you get that big, and then you got that salty like bite.
What was it like? That's okay. Everyone's entitled to their wrong opinion. That's okay. That's okay. I personally like the texture that it has with the softness of the, like you said, that carby feeling to it. The mouthfeel with it on top. Chef's kiss.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I like to put extra butter on mine and sprinkle a little bit of cinnamon on it.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you're maybe more of a cinnamon sugar with like a finer sea salt on top of your pretzel.
Yeah, but see, I have a confession. I take the cinnamon with the pretzel bun and I dip it in liquid cheese, and it is to die for.
Diabolically good.
It's super good. Things that you just wouldn't think are good. Donuts with bacon on them, good. You know,
I will take your word for that, as I am a
I'm
vegetarian.
telling you. Telling you.
I like the sweet and the savory side, definitely. Yeah, I agree. The next question I have is what we kind of talked about this, but there might be other reasons or obstacles as well. What is the most difficult thing within the industry right now?
In terms of salt, availability is always going to be the most difficult thing, because if you look at a salt plant in general, let's just take one of the biggest manufacturers of salt, Morton Salt. Let's just say that for general. There's certain times where I know for a fact that they manufacture a line of salt. Let's say dendritic salt. They'll manufacture it. That takes days. And then they'll stop and use that line for a different salt.
Sure.
Well, if they're using that to make a different salt, they're not making dendritic in that one plant. So at that point in time, if they run out of dendritic, they have to take days to make it. And
Right.
sometimes they get so back ordered at certain periods of time during the year, like towards the end of the year, certain salts run out and get constrained because of that.
Right.
Just because there's too high of a demand, and some of the plants can't keep up. And we know during the end of the year, weather takes its toll on all of transportation, and then also workplaces. Like, there's 7-8 feet of snow outside. Some places aren't ready for that. So I know down in Kansas City and Texas, I mean, depending on where you are,
Yeah.
that's going to have an effect in it. So I will always say the biggest issue in any food industry is availability.
Yeah, I agree. And I think one thing when you were talking about the processing and the manufacturing of it, what people don't realize is a Monday and Tuesday scheduling might look completely different because of the way that the product that they're doing is processed.
Yeah.
So like you said, when, the product is finished, there goes their Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't have enough for all their customers or whoever's buying,
They got to wait.
you got to wait another week.
Lead time
Or maybe they
increases.
do Tuesday, Thursday. You never know.
Correct.
But it definitely makes the availability the most difficult thing.
Yes. Always. Lead time and availability always are our biggest challenge. And obviously, as a sales-driven company,
Mm-hmm.
you know, your sales reps, when they need product, they need product. And if their customers need product, so obviously, if they need it, we need it. And if we need it, there's more of a constraint on us to get the product, and we got to put that same constraint on the supplier.
Yeah.
And when you do that, sometimes it just creates stress.
Sure.
And that's where you see mistakes and issues. And sometimes when I say there's not enough availability, sometimes when they force availability, you see either wrong product or you see delayed, delivery or shortage of product, and then it just messes up the entire order in total.
Yeah. How would you say that St. Charles Trading in particular alleviates these problems?
I would say we like to keep our options open. If we can't find it at one location or with someone, I mean, as a distributor, we like to go to our go-tos, but our end goal is always to please our customer. So we'll see if we can get it from somewhere else for
Sure.
the time being. And then once that, that need is met, we go right back to our well. We go
Yeah.
back to our normal source, because 9 times out of 10, I mean, with us being in business for as long as St. Charles has been in business, we've got the top suppliers. We've got
Sure.
we've got the surefire, transportation and goods to
Yeah.
meet the needs of the customer. But I mean, nobody's perfect, and
Yeah.
we will revert to what we need to fill needs.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one thing that St. Charles Trading does a really good job of is if the needs can't be met, making sure that it's as close as possible.
Yes.
I mean, looking at the spec in particular, looking at the microbials, looking at the moisture, looking at the granulation, and it all comes down to, I mean, salt in particular is going to have a pretty similar taste across the board.
Yeah.
But if it's not, making sure that taste, color, everything looks absolutely the same.
Yes. I mean, we are a just-in-time business.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'd say in the limited amount of years that I've been here, some have had many more years, I think that we do probably a 90 to 95% success rate of delivery on time to our customers.
Yeah.
And that I can say is huge for us, due thanks to our suppliers, but also just due thanks to, us, pushing against the grain and always demanding product.
Sure.
And, in an ample amount of time, with even a short lead time window of 2 to 3 days, we
Right.
still get it done.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people don't realize, I think they think it's literally just buying the product and then transporting the product.
And it's
There
never
is
that.
so much more that goes into it, and it is truly fine tuning throughout the entire process and journey. And I think a lot of the times people think it's just start to finish.
Correct.
And I would say St. Charles Trading does a really great job of, how can we fix this? How are we going to alleviate these problems throughout the whole journey?
Mm-hmm. And I think the biggest thing that we always keep in the back of our mind is we always need to alleviate the stress of the customer.
Yeah.
If we can remove that, we'll take all the stress, because that's our job. That's our
Exactly.
duty. And, if we can supply the customer, our doors stay open.
Exactly. I think it's better for us to be stressed than the customer.
You're correct.
And what industry is your top buyer in? I know you kind of talked about chemicals is what you mostly, where they buy from.
Oh, so you're talking about like in
What type of industry,
okay.
for example,
Who buys the salt the most?
predominantly? Yeah, has there been a shift as well?
It's been a little bit of a shift recently. I'd say more bakeries and food suppliers.
Really?
They've needed it, but I mean, chemical companies are obviously our top, and I do know that it's been increasing. I don't know exactly why. I don't know if it's due to the pandemic or maybe business is just growing.
Right.
Maybe they're creating something new. I do know blends have been a new thing.
Yeah.
With salt, and we have been pushing a lot more out of this place with salt. So I think it's the new creations that are to come that I don't know about, that I want to know about. And as we stated earlier, if flavoring salt was to come, I think that would be huge for the food industry, and that might take a big shift. I think the food industry would have a lot more salt on their hands than they do now already, outside of just chemical and pharmaceuticals. But short of chemicals, pharmaceuticals is definitely going to be the second biggest thing.
Yeah.
Clothing. Off the top of my head, those are like the biggest things.
The biggest ones. Yeah. Do you believe that the market has become more competitive, or it's just like we were talking about, availability?
I think the market has become more competitive from a distributor standpoint.
Sure.
I still think you got the big fishes out there.
Yeah.
The top, like your Mortons and, things like that. And then you have the distributors who are being competitive with one another within the industry to move this product on a year-end basis. Not even just in salt, in all products alone. I think with everything that's going on with the ports right now, things have become really competitive to see who has what on the floor.
Yeah.
And like you said, availability.
Yeah.
It comes down to availability and who's got it. And if you got it, you probably got the fish.
Sure. I would say it's probably competitive and who can problem solve the fastest.
Yes. Agree. Problem solving is always number one in anyone's eyes. The faster you can solve any customer's problem, the more likely they're going to want to be with you.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much for answering that.
You're welcome.
Okay, last question, Eric. This is a personal question. What is your favorite salt application for you personally?
I like to put seasoning salt on over easy eggs.
Ooh,
Heavy.
spicy.
Heavy. Now, if they could just introduce that flavoring salt.
Yeah, game over.
Game over.
I like that. That's a good one. Mine's probably popcorn. I'm a big popcorn
I used to be
person.
a big popcorn fan.
Yeah, you were.
And, as of recent, probably within the last year, I think it's ever since I had my son. I
Yeah.
think the biggest thing is I try to stay away from popcorn. He doesn't do good with the kernels.
Because it's so small.
Yes. And I think his new thing is these little puffs with eggs. And I started making more eggs and sprinkle, baby.
Sprinkle.
He loves it. I also put salt on bacon and a little bit of pepper, but I put a lot of salt on bacon. I do.
Oh my! It's already salty
I
enough.
know. And I lay it in there. I let it sizzle up a little bit in the oils, and
It's curing it.
Yeah.
You're extending the shelf life.
Tastes pretty good.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Eric. I really appreciate it, and tune in for the next time.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks for listening. Follow or subscribe so you can always catch the latest episode. For more information, check out our website at stcharlestrading.com. Keep up with the latest updates on social media through Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at St. Charles Trading. That's at St. Charles Trading.